If you've been watching the past couple weeks, I've done a little series here with this bob shape where I first cut it wet very technically. Then I blow dried using some of my lovely Denman brushes. And now to finish this series, I'm going to be doing some dry refining here. So again, if you haven't seen any of this, you can go back and watch all the previous episodes where I walk you through. The idea here was to cut a nice classic bob line that you'll see, and then put a nice low graduation on it, a very fundamental lesson, but I think one that always is worth kind of revisiting and working on. So what I'm trying to do now is technically refine and do what my good friend Tracy Sakasitz calls exhausting the technique, meaning trying to work as technically as I can before I start using any, for lack of a better term, texturizing techniques, which I definitely will use. And I don't think there's anything wrong with using them. But again, just as an exercise of trying to cut something really clean, then refine it again as technically as possible, kind of going through clean sectioning using what I like to call, it's a simple little technique, but it comes very classic. I kind of bring that hair out to where it was cut originally, but then elevate the ends higher by putting them over the fingers. I always call it bend and blend. So before, when I watch a lot of old footage of great classic kind of precision hair cutters, before there was lots of texturizing to refine, lots of point cutting and slicing, this was one of the things, just to get those ends to have that little bit of elevation on them while you check into them. And that again, and then every time I bring it down, I check the line. You know, the line on this was cut, this graduation was cut with no outline. So as you start to refine the inside, you're gonna have to constantly work to refine the outline.
Just want to take a minute and say hello to everyone in our audience. Sharon Sissy Boyd is saying hello, as well as Nick Guinness. What's going on, guys? Simon Townley, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us.
So again, I'm just going through now, the haircut's dry. This has been cut over the past couple weeks as a lesson. And I cut it first using a very kind of classic line with graduation technique with no real outline, just going right from the line into the internal shape. Then I went through some blow drying using some of the great Denman brushes, which are kind of ideal for this kind of hairstyle and for refining, because, you know, if you can't get this hair really smoothed out, it can be really hard. You know, it's easy to hide any of these little bumps and lumps, and very, very difficult to check lines if the hair isn't very, very refined from the blow dry. See, like that little bit there could have easily been disguised by really kind of turning the ends under in a very kind of, you know, or flipping them out or something like that, or drying naturally. And nothing wrong with that. Got a very vocal dog. So he's, I guess he's liking what I'm doing. That's giving approval. He might come into the shot here. Hey, Rex. All right, so you can see there what the refinement is here. Worked on the graduation, worked on the line a bit, and it's a constant kind of, until that last snip, you're constantly working on it. Taking simple sections. And again, you know, you could, just depends on where you're going with it. I'm trying to exhaust the technique and go into this as technically as I can. Just really because I feel like it, you know, I want this to be a clean haircut. At the end, I may do a few little texturizing things just to take it a little bit further. Now you could at this point just already be pointing and slicing. You know, you can get your wet shape in, get a good balance, and then just do everything. It's really just like what language you feel like speaking, you know what I mean? It's not wrong or right, it's what language do you want your hands to speak with that hair?
How do you know that you're, as you're bending and blending, how do you know that if your elevation is correct? Are you elevating too high or too low or not enough?
So, I mean, honestly, originally this was cut right off the plane of each section at technically what would be considered most of the time 45 degrees, whatever that means to you. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just bending the ends up a little bit. And then sometimes as I start to cut, I just elevate even a little bit more. So for lack of a better explanation, it's understanding where you cut it originally and then trying to just cut it a tiny bit higher and really dust. Now, if you've got a big, error here and, you've got an extra inch of hair, that technique is not going to fix that. You'll have to go back to your original technique and do what needs to be done. But, if you're just looking at something very minor in terms of the density of the hair or the graduation of the hair, that will definitely do the job and do it in a really, I think, beautiful way. So just this front corner is always, such an important place on any bob shape. So I'm going to start working back opposite to the original now that the hair is dry. Hold in my fingers and check a little bit there. I can also check it through the comb or against the skin, depending. Can use a little bit of point cutting here, just where I see that little bit of weight. And that's not really to give texture, that's just to cut small amounts instead of coming all the way across with a solid line and maybe cutting too much. Coming under there a little. As long as that blade's resting on the neck, you'll be safe.
Jordan, Ashley is wondering if this is a certain kind of bob. Is it an A-line? Is it a bob with graduation?
This is a bob with graduation, yeah. I mean, there's... The thing with our craft is there's so many names for everything, and I gave up a long time ago trying to think that there would ever be common names. But what this is I started off in the nape cutting a line, and then quickly went into graduating kind of horizontally. So, it's a bob with graduation. It's got a little bit of an A-line or triangular flow to it, nothing extreme. And then from there, there's just so many ways that people kind of personalize their work, and over the years I've grown to love that instead of think it's something that makes me crazy. So there's probably as many different ways as there is to cut this, there is that many different ways to name it. So just refining again, getting that, again, I haven't used any, I definitely will just because of the nature of the hair. I will use some pointing, perhaps some slicing. I might even use some blending scissors, which is kind of new for me. I'm trying out a whole bunch of new things just to see what I like. But I want to kind of, as my friend Tracy says, exhaust the technique as much as I can. So using technical cutting as much as I can before I go from there. Coming into the second side. Again, this side has a lot more hair to it. So I think it'll be a little bit more work. It's because of the side parting. So really just kind of taking my time here. Looking at the bob line. I've already started to kind of refine it from the other side. And something like a bob line that's got graduation on top of it, I mean, you'll be refining that till the second you're ready to say you're done. So it's not like you just come through it once and go, okay, it's done. Now I'm going to go someplace else. Because everything you do on top of it moves the hair, changes it. So it's constantly in play. So here again, like right now, I'm going to put a little elevation on this and bend it. But look at the dusting, the little bit of hair that I'm cutting. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you can see what it does is it starts to make things more seamless. So you can exhaust the technique. That means just going as far as you can technically. Then there might be an issue with the density of the hair, the head shape. Hopefully, and I'm not going to lie, we're never always perfect. So sometimes you need to use something to help fix a mistake that you did. It happens to all of us. But hopefully that's not the goal here. The goal is that you really try to cut it as perfectly as you could and really get the shape in there.
So basically, you just are going through the sections as you cut it originally and just bending and blending.
Yeah, that's one, that's just one of the approaches. It's the most straightforward, kind of simple approach at this point to begin to, take some of the thickness out of the ends, help them kind of blend in a little bit more. And it just kind of shuffles the ends of the hair a little. Similar to just a very, very gentle, shallow point cutting. And again, as I said, you could go right in now and you could do all kinds of things. You could be point cutting, you could, You could use your texturizing shears, but like to me, it's just all about being able to do lots of different things different ways. So this hair above the round of the head gets even a little more elevation because this is really where a lot of the heaviness comes from. Because once that head shape changes direction, it just kind of, we used to say, puts the roof on the graduation. It kind of puts that line in there, comes from up here. So this kind of coming straight out, bending over the fingers, and again, checking. So, after I've gone through this, I'll pretty much, I could probably continue again and again to go through technically and kind of micro dust those ends. But I think I'll feel, to be quite honest, as if I've gone through the technique, I've exhausted my technical approach, and then I'll start to go in using some different methods. Elevating even a little bit higher here. Again, if you wanted to see this from the very beginning, all you have to do is click on our little live video button on the Hairbrained official Hairbrained's Facebook page, and you'll be able to see, not only this, but really all the videos that we've done over the years. But over the last couple weeks, this has been kind of a process where I cut a wet technical shape and then came in and blow dried, which, is really kind of a lot of work. But really with the right brushes makes a difference. So using my Denman, whole collection of Denman brushes to get this exactly where I wanted it. I'm gonna switch to like a longer scissor now. This is more of a 7-inch scissor, great for lines like this because you can I was using a dry cutting scissor, so it doesn't cut perfectly clean. That's just a little thing that I like to do when I do the refining. I don't wanna make the lines blunter. But now going back to a more traditional scissor because here we do want a nice clean line. When the hair was wet, I preserved extra length here around the front, which is a pretty normal thing to do because that tends to kind of jump up on you or move around. And I'd rather really kind of finalize that when the hair is dry. Because if you're kind of messing with it wet, it's very easy to soften this corner around the front too much or lose it completely. Yeah, I still have quite a few clients that like very, very classic, beautiful bob shapes. I think we always will. Whether it'll come and go in trend. I know sometimes, some celebrity might cut their hair into a bob and people remember, oh, what a beautiful haircut. And maybe it's a little more trend focused. But one way or another, there's always going to be a clientele that likes a beautiful, clean bob. And to be honest, they know it's not easy to do. They know that you need an experienced hairdresser, and they know that you need to kind of, pay for what you get. So it is a good way. If you're thinking, how can I perhaps increase my pricing? I think getting really good at bobs is something that can help you with that. Because, you're not working with a clientele that doesn't understand the value of a haircut. This clientele really does understand the value of a haircut.
Ashley is loving this haircut, as well as Wendy. She's sitting so beautifully. Welcome, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in and hanging out with us.
All right, guys, now I'm going to change things up a little bit. I've gone through like the classic refinement, but this is very, very dense hair. My beautiful Josephine mannequin has a lot of hair. I could go into point cutting, but I'm trying to get to know this kind of concept of a blending scissor. Many of you might be familiar. This kind of blade is completely dull. So it just holds the hair in place so this can cut. And over the past month or so, I've been trying to play around with something like this to get the vibe. So I'm gonna go through now a bit more vertically and work on the ends of the hair with it. Still not going in super deep. I've played with them enough to know that I don't really like just going straight and cutting, but I've been having some fun kind of working with them as a point cutting tool to really kind of fan out and air out the ends. Again, focusing more on the top. You can see where it gets real solid here. I've already done a little bit of this on the underneath in preparation. So you can see how it's a little bit softer there. But now working on the top here so I can start to kind of see through the hair a little more. Even this kind of motion I really enjoy with it. Kind of a controlled slicing, we call it normally, but I guess you can call it the same with a scissor like this. Sometimes it's nice to cut from the inside out. So you can see that thickness there. Takes out a very small amount. I mean, obviously a lot less than a regular solid scissor would. So in some ways it's keeping the hair more technical, you know, because it's not really breaking it up that much. Looking through the hair, I can see where it's darkest, right here. And I know that, you know, not everyone is the same, but I know that the Josephine mannequin gets really dense up in here. With a client, it might be different. You might look at it and say, oh, it's dense. So look at that, the way it just kind of melts it in. So, you know, this kind of tool, it isn't always to just make the hair look shredded and broken up. I think in this case, it's going to make the haircut look more seamless and more technically clean and strong. Yeah, which is sometimes a little bit challenging to grasp that concept. Here, just trying it a little more horizontally. I don't love that because it makes a little too much of a visible difference. So again, just getting used to these blenders is not something I've ever used in my 30 years as a hairdresser, believe it or not. But I'm finding that, you know, when I go in like so, I like the effect better. Just kind of straight into the hair rather than across the hair.
Using it as a point cutting technique versus as a club cut technique.
Totally. Thank you. Kelly always coming up with the good analogies. And focusing on the top, and you see the way that just kind of like melts that in, you can see the difference, how it just starts to travel along. So again, you know, for those of you, and you know, maybe I was in that camp at one point in my life where I was like, oh, I would never use a scissor like that for whatever reason, you know. Great, I mean, I'm trying it out. Sometimes you think, oh, let me try something different. It's great to use mannequins, like pivot point mannequins, to try stuff out. And man, if in the end you think it looks better and it works better, could be a, you know, a real game changer for you. You know, I haven't used these enough to say, hey, it's changed the game for me. This is probably only like the 5th or 6th time I've even played with them. But right now I can definitely say that I feel like that made that really pretty. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, again, I'm always going on to say there's so many ways to do things. So I could have probably just kind of kept pointing through gently, gently, gently. But it's nice to try different things. Just
to change subjects a little bit, Gerard, Ashley was wondering if you have any advice for the after effects of COVID. She always had healthy hair until COVID. Is it just the fact of working with what you have now and instead of trying to revert back to what you once was? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can't say that I know enough about it. My advice whenever I work with or speak to clients and they ask kind of medical related things is to say, you know, speak to your doctor, speak to your dermatologist, in all honesty. As a hairdresser, I can just deal with what's in front of me. You know, I can say, okay, your hair seems thinner, so perhaps we shouldn't layer it as much because it's going to get a little bit too fine, or I can make choices like that. But, you know, on a health level, I would definitely say, you know, you want to speak to a dermatologist and they can tell you, I'm sure they're experts who are really dealing with this, and they can say, you know, what you might need to take or use or do differently.
Or add to your diet or
add to your diet. So I hate to cop out that way, but that's how I've always treated that.
But in terms of hairdressing, yes, you could change your haircut. You can maybe put it into a solid shape.
If hair is finer, you know, you don't want to take as much weight out of it typically. You know, you might want to go for a more simple, solid shape. Maybe a one-length haircut would make the most if your hair's gotten very fine. You know, you don't want a lot, you know, but that again, there's a lot of different, it could be a one-length haircut done with a razor and just that little bit of texture on the ends of the hair could help. But typically, lots of short layers and fine hair is not necessarily a great idea. But it's such a case-by-case thing.
Thank you. So Gerard, if you wouldn't mind just to recap what you've got going on here. Is this an A-line bob? Is this a bob with graduation? Is it a graduated bob?
Okay, so, you know, some people might call it an A-line. It's got a slight angle forward to it. It's not an extremely steep A-line. Most people would say this is just kind of a classic bob because it follows the line of the jaw. It does have some graduation. It was cut, if you want to see the whole technique, cut from wet to this stage, it's been done over 3 lives. I cut it wet a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago. So it's right here on our Facebook page. Went through the wet technique of how I kind of build the graduation in an almost horizontal fashion. Then I went through the blow dry, which is super important because you can't do any of what I'm doing now without the blow dry. You know, unless you want to, if she's going to wear it natural all the time, well, then you go ahead and you diffuse it natural and you cut it kind of freehand, which is, I'm fine. I love that. But if you want to really kind of do the more traditional refining and perfecting, you want to blow dry that hair nice and smooth using beautiful brushes like the ones that I used from Denman. And then you want to go through. So what did I do? I started off very technically. I tried to exhaust my technique. Now I'm doing something that I have to be honest, I have never done this before, which is fun. I'm working with a new type. I have companies all the time sending me stuff to see if we want to partner with them. You know, we're looking to expand our tool line of HB Pro shears and scissors. So, you know, I've heard a lot of people who really love these blending shears, blending scissors. It means that this is totally blunt. See that? Ah, you're all freaking out, right? This is totally just a solid piece, has no edge on it. So it just holds the hair and then these kind of cut into them. I've played with it enough to know that I don't really like to do this with them, and I'll do it just so you can see. You know, I don't like to just go through and close. But I kind of don't like that anyway. I never feel like it's personal enough. So I've started to just kind of go through in several different ways. Here, just fanning the hair out.
And before the life of these texturizing scissors, what would you do? Is it point cutting?
Yeah, I can show you right now. I mean, there's lots of different things you can do. I can do what I'm doing with these. I can do the controlled slicing, which I do kind of a lot, but it's going to take more weight out. You see, a lot more is going to come out. You see that? So in some ways, those are more gentle. I could also, you know, I could just point into the ends. But again, remember, this is a solid blade. So in a lot of ways, it's not a lot. It's definitely going to take more weight out. This takes less weight out is what I'm discovering. So in some ways, perhaps it keeps the haircut more technical, strange as that might sound, right? Because it's taking less out. So there's still more. When we say technical, it typically means like a clean, strong line on the ends of the hair. This is taking less hair out. You know, you can also, if you weren't here in the beginning, I went through technically just using elevation to try to first make sure that my ends could be as light as they could be, exhausting the technique, so to speak. You can see here, I often, especially on the sides, elevate higher. Come stand on the opposite side of the head. And the higher, the lighter. So by coming through here, and I can look for any thick areas.
Debbie Russell is wondering, how are you feeling with a swivel thumb?
Yeah, I don't even notice it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't notice any difference. Now, I know some people are like, oh, you have to hold your hand this way or that way. Maybe I need a little bit more someone who's very experienced with them, because I'm doing everything the way I normally do. That being said, I've never had any shoulder or elbow issues. You know, people say you can keep your elbow down and do everything with your elbow down. But I guess just because I've been cutting hair for so long, this feels so, I feel like a T-Rex to try to do that. It just doesn't feel right. So I'm still lifting my elbow, but you know, you'll notice that it moves for me. So it is doing this. So, you know, I feel like I'm doing things the way I normally do, but the scissor is just swiveling a little bit more. Now, again, granted, as I said, so Debbie's probably been here, you know, watched a few of these. I'd never used these before. I never used blending. I never used swivel. So this is kind of experimentation for me. I would love, I checked out some videos from my buddy Sam Villa. I know he's big on the swivel. And I was just trying to see like what they did differently. And a lot of times the biggest thing I could get out of it was that, you know, keep your elbows down and do this, which I can totally understand. And if you've had maybe shoulder or wrist problems or anything like that, I just never have had any shoulder or wrist problems. Maybe I'm lucky. So I'm just naturally kind of moving my shoulder and my wrist.
Jared is wondering, do you notice a difference in how the hair lays if you texturize with the teeth of thinning shears up or down?
That's a good question. I haven't done it down. Oh, you mean like turned this way or this way?
I think so.
I know that, so I've been to Japan and I've spoken to people that are very immersed in this. And yeah, in Japan, it's a big deal. Like if the scissor is on top, if the teeth are on the top or the teeth are on the bottom, I'll be honest, maybe my ADD kicked in, but I know they're like, if the teeth are on the bottom, it turns under. If they're on the top, it kicks out. I haven't gone there yet. I can totally, it makes sense. I haven't gotten to that level yet. I've so rarely used any type of thinning scissor. So you're watching me in my kind of infancy here, trying to figure out how I like it. Now, hey, that's how I was with the razor 20 years ago. You know, I had never used the razor. I left Sassoon's and I was like, wanted to try new things. And it was the same with the razor, you know, so who knows? Maybe on my 50th year cutting hair, I'll be the texturizing scissor king. But to answer your question as best as I can, I know that that's a thing. Like my buddy Hector Rodriguez, great hair cutter and really knowledgeable about scissors. He works with BMAC. I know that's a big part of what he does. He works a lot with different ones, different texturizing scissors, getting different effects. So I'm just kind of working very simply and just that last 2 or 3 inches of the hair, trying to get some of the thickness out.
Now, how do you know when you're done?
I just was noticing that I'm almost done because when I picked that up across the parting, I felt like the density was consistent. So when I go like that, like so here it looks a little thick. I'm treating it kind of the way I do with a razor when I do what's called tipping. So I look here, I can see through the hair a little more. Here it's a little more solid. So I'll know when I'm done when I feel like all of the density, all of the, what I like to call the razor taper is consistent. And I think we're almost there. You know, I don't know how deep into the nape I want to go. I might want to keep a little bit more of a structure down there. And then, there's also obvious visible things. You know, when I started here, there was still kind of a weight line. And now there's not. There's weight, but no weight line. You know, I didn't want to like round the corner off on the top or overly texturize it because I knew it really had a lot to do just with the head shape and the density of the hair. All right, so I feel like the inside is pretty much where I want it. So this is when I come back that one last time. It's like I said, you'll be constantly working on the line until it's the last thing that you do. So just coming back in here, starting to go downhill a little bit, back in here, getting underneath the hair. You know, I think it can be very difficult to get great lines on a mannequin. Not a bad thing, because it just gives you a lot of practice so that when you do work on a person, I do think, you know, cutting people is easier than cutting mannequins. I know people disagree, but you know, even a great mannequin like a pivot point, you know, it's not flesh, so I can't just push it down. So I have to really work hard on my ability to get the lines in. And then what I've always found is it's just such great training, because then when I work on a breather, as we call them, a live person, which I still do. I was just in New York working on my clientele. Everything just seems so much more simple. I don't know, it's because I have the practice in or all the different reasons. So this is really just finishing that line up. Something I like to do with the front, these like special little clips that are very light. You know, because when you've got such a strong side parting, sometimes it's hard to tell if it's really well balanced. And for me, the best way to balance it is to push it off to the side and use these clips, the no crease clips like so. Might need more than one. Let's see if I can do that again. There's another one in here. Got another one over here somewhere. and then try to look for my balance that way, right? So they're both kind of in the same place. Come around here. A little heavy on the light side. Not unusual, because the heavy side, you tend to have to do more work to it, you know? You're doing a bit more checking and texturizing. So it's not unusual, at least for me. I guess we're all a little different. And I can also feel like this is a little thicker. So that little trick helps me with a lot of things. Helped me get the length where I wanted it, and it helped me see the density here. I'm gonna go through this side one last time with the blenders here closer to the edge. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I know that our world is, hopefully for most of us, returning to some normalcy. Feels like we've made it through this last surge very well. Hopefully nothing else rears its ugly head. And we're all back to kind of normal, at least as normal as things can be. Work, busy, doing what we love, beautiful haircuts, and making people happy.
Is the amount of time that you open and close, how much hair comes off every time you open and close?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, obviously with a blunt scissor, you can only open and close once and the hair comes off. Where with, you know, this blending scissors, you can open and close more times. But yeah, the more you do it, the more hair you're gonna take off.
Kathy is loving this haircut. Diana really enjoys Bob's. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and hanging out with us.
Yeah, guys, there you have it. You know, again, if you missed any, it's a 3-part series. I started off about 2 weeks ago. First, technically cutting the shape in on damp hair, trying to be as clean as I could be. Then last week I blow dried using some Denman brushes to get a beautiful blow dry here. And then I just wanted to show you some finishing techniques. Here I'm just finishing up using some of the R&Co Blue Feather Light hairspray. If you guys are fans of R&Co or want to learn more about R&Co, head to our Instagram page today at noon. I'll be connecting with the team in Miami, and they're kind of doing like a photo shoot, some new educational stuff there, and they're going to show me what they've been working on, and we're going to get to talk to Adam Federico, Richie Kandasamy, and some of the team there. All right, guys, thanks for staying with me over the past couple weeks with this look. I hope you found some value in it.